Okay, we'll call a pre-meeting of the West Jordan Planning and Zoning Commission for October 3rd, 2023. We have 4 members present, so we'll go ahead and start. We will excuse Commissioner Hatch. She's unavoidably out of the country. So,
Make it sound like she committed a crime or something.
well, I did not say that. All right. First on the agenda is the minutes from last meeting, which was almost a month ago. Any questions? Comments? Okay. I forgot to ask, do we have training today? Okay. Then we'll go ahead and get started with the public hearings on the street light standards. And who's handling that? Is that you, Larry?
Do you want to come up and talk about it, Kevin, or do you want to come up and talk about your street lights? So it's kind of amazing. We have 4 planning commissioners and 2 electricians here. So
Push the right button. Hello.
So I'm Kevin Bateman. I'm the master electrician for West Jordan City. What we've got going is a lot of street light work, and you've seen our standard. We have an Acorn, which is our big commercial on the big corridors, and then you have a Cobra head. That's the style on the big corridors, and then you have an Acorn that's in the residentials and also in the decorative commercials out in front of right here on Redwood Road. That would be an Acorn commercial. All these lights you see out here would be Acorn commercials. What we've had is we've got Sternberg as our standard, and in the last couple of bids, Sternberg's gone wild with us. Our last bid, we had we wanted 100 residential Sternbergs. They raised the price $1,000 per unit, which we didn't have. So we pushed back and decided we got to get competition. So this is what we're trying to do tonight: is present another Acorn fixture that we deem as equal to the Sternberg. We're not taking the Sternberg off of our spec. We're just adding another light to that. King Luminaire is the name of that Acorn light. So that's what we're trying to do tonight.
Any questions?
I have a question. They're going to look similar enough that when they're, you've got one here and then half a block down the road, people are not going to be wondering why it looks different.
They're identical.
Oh, okay.
They're a different brand name and they're put together a little bit different, but they perform the same wattage. They're the same style. You probably wouldn't want to put one like a double head out here. We've got side by side.
Okay.
You wouldn't do that, but you could put a double head here, 160 feet down the road, a double head of the other style, and you wouldn't be able to tell the difference.
What about, I wasn't able to find this information in the report, but what about the Kelvin rating on the?
Our Kelvin rating in the city is 4,000. That's just across the board.
Okay, so
it'll talk to other cities, but that's what we go with.
Yeah.
So you could change that color. The LEDs, you can change the color quite easily. So that's not a big deal.
So they're adjustable, is that?
They are.
Okay, great.
Right now we're at 4,000.
And the output, the light, the amount of light that is output from those?
So the commercials are about an 80 watt LED. And then most of them have inside, they call it a fob or a dimmer. It's a button you just push and you go from 0 to 10. So the King Luminaire, the one Acorn head, would be, you could set it at residential or commercial. That's one thing we like about it. With Sternberg, I got to buy a residential head or I got to buy a commercial head. They look identical. They're just different LEDs inside the head. So
all right.
They're adjustable.
Those are my questions. Other than that, I guess, just curious, what is the cost for just one of them at the better price?
So the total price we're used to is about $1,200, $1,400 per head. And they raised them up to $1,000 more. On the residential, they went $1,000 per unit.
Wow.
Which caught us a little bit off guard.
Yeah, no kidding.
And basically, we have another head already approved, but it's pretty much strictly residential, and it's Hadco head. But when they know sometimes we just have to have that Sternberg head because it's going on one of these streets that has to match. When they catch wind that it's going to be just Sternberg on that bid, they cannot control themselves. They go wild. And so we figured we'll get a competition so they're welcome to bid on the product, but they've got to be a little bit more responsible.
Thank you for doing that.
I have a question too. Oh,
I'm
go
not
ahead.
done.
I'm sorry.
You're first.
You're first, yeah.
Thank you. I don't know that I've ever had the privilege before of speaking with a city master electrician. Let me say a non-elected master.
Yeah.
And I think we have the time. Do you mind giving us a broader overview of your work and, how many lights are there in the city? And
We have 6,700 street lights in the city. We have 3 electricians that take care of that. We don't just do street lights, but that's the bulk. 70% of what we do is street lights. And we have, we kind of split the city into, we have an old section and a new section. Anything probably west of Bangor is new, and the systems out there are a lot better. Anything in the old system is got power in the backyard, where the new systems of power is in the front yard. Makes it a lot easier for us. A lot of what we do is take care of. In the last 2 weeks, our electrical crew's done nothing but fix things that worked the 2 weeks before that, with all Google Fiber, with all of the fiber optics that are going in. We spend a lot of time fixing our systems. We have hundreds and hundreds of miles of network under the ground. You see streetlights, but there's a network of copper that's underneath that street that powers all those streetlights. The other half of that, lately we spend putting back in copper that's being stolen. So we have a lot of copper theft right now. It's crazy. We've tried everything we can think of to slow them down. And we just got Amazon out there, high profile. We try to keep that one going. They keep stealing the wire around that. It's just, there's probably a mile all the way around that campus, and there's big copper wire feeding between those streetlights. So it's quite a target, and they just keep hitting it. So we got the police helping us. We've got everything we can think of, but constant battle. We spent a lot of time putting back together things that were already there.
if the copper is buried underground, how are the thieves getting to it?
They're pretty smart. It's in conduit. So all they got to do is get in there. And sometimes they do it when it's hot. I mean, they leave big flash marks up they're not very smart. They're a little bit dangerous. But all you got to do is get a hold of that. There's 3 to 4 wires in each conduit. They get it separated, they cut it. So Amazon, the guy, same guy, I think, same MO. He goes in the night before and cuts all the connections. So it's dark. So now he's got it dark, and then he comes in the next night or two and starts stealing it. He'll pull that wire out, play around, and hits it with his car and drive down the road.
Wow.
And there's about 400 feet between poles, so that's quite a chunk of copper. And up there at Amazon the other night, he got between 8 poles in one night. So that's we figure it'll be about $5,000 for us to put that back in. Anyway, that's one of the things we do. We take care of all the motors. We have 18 big motors that move water across the city. The booster stations, I think we have 6 or 7 deep wells we play with. We take care of all the facilities needs, and we take care of all the parks needs. So we work for every group, but the bulk of what we do is streetlights. So,
Well, thank you.
Yep.
I'm glad that you just let 15 more people know how to do that.
I wish we had 15 more people.
Well, there's 15 of us now that know how to steal that copper.
Right. I would trust you better than that.
Commissioner Richardson.
When you say Amazon, you don't mean Amazon steals the copper.
No, it's their campus, but we own all the
Oh, their
streetlights.
campus.
So we own all the streetlights on the public roads
Okay.
and all the way around that. There's a lot of development out there. I think we've got 50 or 60 new 30-foot poles out there. That some of them they're so new they haven't even been activated yet. So that copper's just sitting duck.
So that's where they target, is what you're saying.
That's really
Okay.
target.
If the lights look the same as the new lights you're using, The new ones are,
Kim
Okay.
Luminaire.
okay. If they look the same as the other ones, why would it be a problem to install the new ones? You know, where one might not need to be installed where all the other, you know, to be the same as the other ones. There must be some difference that you would opt to still buy the one that now is $1,000 more.
Well, what will happen is that $1,000 more will go down very quickly. They'll move that price back down. As soon as they realize there's competition, that's how the lighting world works. They're pretty.
I see.
They take advantage of you.
Oh, I see. So we're just approving this so that you can tell them that, hey, we got another supplier.
Right.
Okay.
You're not bidding against. You're bidding against. Right now, when we say Sternberg only, that's when they go crazy.
Why are they raising it $1,000 more?
They think we're stupid.
Okay. And is it in our budget to spend that kind of that?
No,
It's not.
no way.
Okay. So
Think about it. Our acorns are about, let's say they're averaging $1,300 a head. Our cobra heads, which would be the big 30-foot poles that look like a cobra head, they're about $250 a piece. They do a better job. They're a lot cheaper, but they don't pass the CUTE test. Yeah.
So are you going to, if this is passed, you're going to use both of them now?
They're both welcome to bid.
Okay.
And we're liking both. We have two big projects coming. Redwood Road's got like 67 of those heads on it. On a project coming up, we got 90th South coming from the river bottom up. There's, I think, 27 double heads on that one. So that's the main. We're trying to get those in place before those bids. Those numbers were kind of set 6 months ago. So if they really can raise that price $1,000, we don't have the money to do the two jobs we've got set aside to do. I mean, so some of that's just keeping them honest.
So really, you have no idea why they're raising it 1,000. I mean, that seems like it's more than 50%. Right?
That's 100%.
I mean, oh, it's 100%. You're right. So I mean, but they give you no reason. Supply.
They're saying there's all it's a supply. They're saying that the same story here everywhere else, but that's just too much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
We're buying every 6 months, so we see kind of a trend going up, but
Right. Okay.
nothing like that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Commissioner Wynn.
I'll just say, as a citizen, I appreciate your attention to being mindful of budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Am I done?
Thanks. Yeah, we want you to come talk to us more often. That was entertaining. Lift stations?
Greg Davenport, Western Public Utilities. I'm here to talk with you about sewer lift stations. The city council came to staff and told us that they were concerned our current language in code wasn't strong enough and that they wanted to further regulate the use and the possibility of using lift stations. And so the city staff has come up with some language that closely mirrors what's in our design standards, but would be stronger if it were in code. And that's what we're going to ask you to look at tonight, is to give your recommendation on how you feel about taking that design standard language and bringing it up into city code. Do you have any questions?
Yes, let me think of how to phrase it. So maybe it's the same question. What's prompting the city council to push this forward? Is there a potential for this kind of lift station to come in? And I guess the follow-up to that is, are there really any properties still locally here that could be developed that would require one?
So currently right now, and I'm trying to, I don't want to, steal all the thunder before we get in the presentation, but before the public comes and everything else. But right now we don't have any public lift stations. We're one of the few sewer company districts, cities in Salt Lake Valley that does not have those. It's something that many do. We spent a lot of money in the city to eliminate those. We're lucky to have good fall between the west part of our city to the east part of our city. And because there was good planning that went in, we were able to not have those. Some of the problems with sewer lift stations are that you have to continuously monitor those. If they break, then sewer comes up into someone's house or into the street, and we have an illegal discharge that we have to report to the state. And so in the past, we've had operators that had to be on call 24/7 that would monitor for alarms. And we also had parts that were available at any time in case one of those went down. We like not having lift stations. We do have one private lift station in the city that is down right by the Jordan River, and that was one that we couldn't change out because the receiving line is actually higher in elevation than these homes because they are right next to the Jordan River. That would probably be a time when we would consider something of a lift station is if you got down right by the Jordan River, because there's realistically not a lot of options when you're that low. For developers, when you have a piece of property, especially a piece of property that may be ahead of its time, it's tempting to use a lift station as a way to get around working with other property owners to maybe get an easement through their property or other items. And so is that a possibility that we could see future groups come in and want to do that? Yes, there is. Could I identify those? No, I don't really know that I could or should identify those pieces of property right now, but it is a possibility, yes.
No, I appreciate that. Maybe turn a question over to Duncan. By adopting this, are we creating a situation where the city could be at risk for a lawsuit because we're telling someone they can't develop a property because it would otherwise require a lift station?
No, state code doesn't require us to have any particular type of system, so to speak. So that's a great question. They can still develop, they just have to use different methods. The methods might be more expensive, but they're still available, right? And in fact, I mean, that's the way Greg is describing this works, is that for a private system, we don't usually allow them in an extreme situation where if somebody can prove that there's just no other way to develop, the Public Utilities Director does have the authority to grant it, but doesn't have to. It's discretionary. So Greg could grant it. So, but usually what it boils down to, I mean, 99% of the time, there's one solution that costs X and another one that costs 3X, and they want the X. And it's not that they can't do it. It's just more expensive to do it a different way is really the issue, right? I don't remember in my experience, and maybe Greg has different experience than me, but I don't remember ever that because we didn't allow a lift station or some other type of equipment that it prevented somebody from developing altogether. It may have been cost prohibitive, and I don't think I've never experienced that. There's usually always a way, right? So
We actually have a plan to sewer all of the city of West Jordan without a lift station. So if the city really got desperate and we wanted to help a property owner out that was maybe an advance of their time, they could always go to city council and see if they could use city council's authority to condemn an easement across a property. But all of the sewer lines for all of the existing areas have been mapped out so that it's possible for all of them to develop at some time without a lift station.
Great. Well, I think it's amazing. I'll echo what Commissioner Wynn said. The amount of planning that we've had to go into all of this and remove as much of the mechanical equipment that has to be replaced over time, as well as the maintenance, the oversight, and all of that. It's saving the public money. I think that's great. So, Commissioner Shelton.
I guess your comment of, hey, it's all been planned out. We can do the entire city with no additional lift systems other than the one that's already been installed just north of the sewer station. Question begs, why are we addressing this?
I've been asked to do this by the city council. That's why I'm here today.
Yeah. But there's, other than that the city council has asked you to do it, do you see a valid reason that this needs to be addressed? First of all, I need to make this public knowledge. I have no idea who asked you to do this, who's on this weekend, right? So it's not a dig on any one person. Please, no, I need to know.
I don't really have that information, but I'm so happy that Alan Anderson is here, right? And Alan represents the council, and he would be better to speak to that than I would, because I would just be guessing it. I don't feel like
Okay, thank
like
you.
that's proper for me to do. Alan, do you want to come up and answer that question?
While Alan's coming up, I don't know if Greg mentioned this in his pre-presentation, but this is basically just giving this already existing standard that we've been using for I don't know how many years.
As long as I've been here.
Yeah, quite a number of years, and so this just adds more substance and validity to that existing standard.
Let me add one more thing that I was going to say, and I'll say there too. We're not the only district that does this. Our neighbor to the south, which is really the largest sewer district probably in the state of Utah, South Valley Sewer District, has a code that is really close to what we are proposing. Same thing, Sandy Suburban District, which is our another neighbor, which does Sandy. They also have code that is remarkably similar to what we are doing. Most sewer districts do something like this because it is such a maintenance responsibility to take on a sewer lift station that needs to be controlled in some way.
Yeah.
Would you repeat the question?
Oh, that's good. His question was, which city council member proposed this?
Doesn't matter who proposed it. It matters how many voted to move it forward.
How many people voted to move it forward?
All of them. All 7. It was reviewed initially in a work session on March 15th. And just referencing the minutes. Sewer lift stations. Mr. Davenport said he was not a fan of lift stations. Councilmember Whitelock said she believed the proposal was timely, spoke in favor. Councilmember McConaughey said the city did not own any lift station, nor did he want any. He wasn't sure the city should prohibit the use of them on private property, which the standard and this ordinance still allow. Vice Chair Bloom said she was happy with what was proposed. Councilmember Jacob said he would want something to vote on. Mayor Burton said he had a good feel for what the council wanted and said staff would work and bring it back. And then it was modified from what was initially discussed back in March to make it more in line with what the engineering standard was. I presented it to the council September 13th and just said, is this, you still want me to move forward with this? And that vote, let me get to that section. Sorry, I thought I had it right here. That one was all the council members desired to move forward, and that's why it comes to you, is because it's a land use decision. The council looks forward to your recommendation, and then second meeting in October 25th. I anticipate it coming before the council for action.
Do you know what the genesis is of the council asking this to come forward?
I don't know the specific genesis of what brought it forward. However, I know there's a couple parcels on the west side that we're having some discussions about getting developed, and a couple of those have the slope goes down where it would probably necessitate. So I think this is just a precursor to make sure that we don't have sewer lifts that use the public facility. Sewer lift pumps can fail. They have failed before. That causes a potential for a backlog where you'd have raw sewage backing into people's homes. And so I think this is just a preventative measure that developers understand that they've got to find a gravity solution to transporting sewage.
And reiterating, I think what I heard. So solutions could be finding a means of draining by gravity. Also, they could put together some sort of an HOA or something like that, create a private lift station,
Mhm.
and then they just operate it themselves.
So this isn't intended to prohibit in that situation an HOA or to prohibit a future development, say along the Jordan River, as was previously mentioned.
It should mirror it. Yeah, push your button.
Yeah, it wouldn't prevent it. The original lift station on the Jordan River went in with the design standards that we have right now. Because there was no other alternative, they have a private HOA owned lift station that lifts it up into the public sewer.
So I guess my question is, we already have design standards for what a sewer lift station should look like. That makes it pretty difficult for someone to get an approval for this. Why do we need to change the design standards? Or it sounds to me like the only goal here is to make it more onerous for someone to obtain this permit when it already needs to be brought before through us and then the council for final approval anyway. I mean, it's got to go through staff, then planning commission, then city council. At some point, we were already making a decision on this. Why do we need to spend all this time and energy building out an entirely updated ordinance just to?
Problem is, it's already done.
We already have an ordinance in place. So I don't know. To me, it just feels a lot like the tree issue from a couple months ago. Like we're just wasting staff's time.
Well, I could probably add a little insight too, that in addition to city code, we have the public improvement standards, which are adopted through this same process. In fact, that, on your agenda tonight, the streetlight standards we were just talking about, those will be adopted not into our city code, but into the public improvement standards. Those things that are specific and, here's the exact kind of streetlight and here's the drawing of it and here's the brands that those real specifics go in the public improvement standards. The things that are more general policy end up in the city code, right? So there's a few pages, if I remember correctly, Greg can correct me if I'm wrong, that talk all the specifics about sewer lift stations and pump stations. And this is only just a few lines, right? Just because it's more just the general policy. In my view, because I helped draft that, Greg and I and some others drafted the language that's recommended to be in the code. It's intended to just be a high level overview. Here's the policy. And if you're searching through the main city code, boom, here it is. If you want more specifics, go to the public improvement standards, right? And so I think in my view, it's not a change in policy. It's solidifying the general main policy and making it available and easily searchable in the city code. Because right now, somebody can search in the city code and it doesn't talk about lift stations, right? And some people don't know to go to those public improvement standards. So hopefully that's helpful.
He answered my question pretty well. So, I mean, the only other thing that I would add is in this form of government, one of the responsibilities of council is to define city policy by ordinance, meaning they address the code. I've referred to it as being the custodian of the city code. They also have budget responsibilities and they can review municipal administration. So I can't speak, I'm not an attorney, as to whether it's duplicative or not, but it does make it more solid that the city, by policy, by ordinance, by city code, would prefer not to have sewer lift stations feeding into the public sewer system for the associated risks that has.
And I think the other thing the other way to answer this, to kind of fill in the blanks a little, is if there are, I think one of the main concerns, and again, Greg can correct me if I'm wrong, is that we don't want to go from a public sewer system to a private system and back to a public system. And I mean, the one example, I guess the one that we already have by the river, it sounds to me like it's just private right into the public and then it's done, right? It's just out by itself, no other way to connect in. But it's not, the one we already have is not public, then private, and then back to public. That just doesn't work. And that's definitely not allowed by this proposed code section. and I think maybe that makes it clear, right? Because if you have future development on the west side and you got mountainous areas, and that's where you have the most chance for a lift station, just making it clear to future development out that way. Hey, just so you know, this just isn't possible, right? It doesn't work. Nobody else allows it. I think that's part of the dynamic too, right? I mean, in the past, it wasn't likely to happen other than by the river, but it is more likely to be asked for maybe out in the hilly, mountainous areas, right? Because, for instance, you have that one, was it Garden City up by Bear Lake? They have like 50 lift stations in their city because they got all these mountains and hills or whatever they are. But so anyway, that's maybe part of the dynamic too.
Okay, thank you. I think we are past 6 o'clock, so we can move right into our meeting. Do I get to smack the gavel?
You get to do whatever you want. You're the boss.
All right. Well, we'll call over the October 3rd, 2023 meeting of the Planning Commission for West Jordan City. We have 6 commissioners present with Commissioner Hatch excused. And we'll move right into the consent calendar with the minutes, discussion, or a motion. Commissioner Thomas.
I make a motion that we go ahead and accept those minutes.
Commissioner Wynn.
I second that motion.
Okay, further discussion? We have a motion from Commissioner Thomas, second from Commissioner Wynn. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, we have 2 public hearings for the evening. Was the text amendment, the third one was postponed, right? Continues?
Yes.
We will have to motion that. All right. Well, so we'll move on to our second agenda item, the streetlight standards to amend the West Jordan City Street Lighting Design and Construction Standards, section 16500, by adding an additional commercial streetlight, the K118 Washington LED by King Luminaire, citywide applicability with City of West Jordan applicants. Who wants to present? You want to come back up and present for the public this time around? I appreciate that.
Yes, this is still on. So we want to add another approved equal acorn commercial head to our standards. The main reason is to have competition so that our bids are more, gives one more person a product to be bought by the city and spread the love around a little bit. And it also keeps everybody honest. So that's what we're trying to do. It's the acorn style fixture, which would be the more decorative fixture we have in the city. You'll see them on 7800 South. You'll see them on Redwood Road. You'll see them on the new project coming up out of the river bottoms up on 90th South. That's where you mainly see these more decorative fixtures. They're very expensive. A lot of those are double-headed fixtures. They're the more where they have to, we call them cutesy. They've got the cute factor. And that's very important in the city. So that's what we're trying to do.
Question for staff, Commissioner Richardson.
Oops. Okay. Yes. Are these manufactured locally, or where do you get them from?
So the vendor that the new product would come would be a local vendor in West Jordan City. All of these fixtures come out of all across the country. None of them are made here in Utah. So anyway, it would be a vendor in the West Jordan City would be the vendor. Mountain States Lighting is that particular vendor. Those can be bought through any of our local supply houses. And that's when you typically put the bid out. All the supply houses will bid. Makes it so they can get competition going too. So that a lot of games being played. Someone will play favoritism to Sternberg, and that will go to like Codell Electric will have the advantage. And Royal Electric is a local vendor as well in West Jordan City, won't have an advantage on the Sternberg because they don't have a relationship. So this makes it so they have another option so that they can make it a little bit fairer on the playing field. So.
Thank you.
All right, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
This has been noticed, Commissioner Shelton, I'm sorry. Okay. This has been noticed as a public hearing. And so we will now turn this opportunity over to the public if they wish to say anything. If you're online, feel free to raise your hand. If you're here locally or in person, feel free to come up to the podium. I have 3 minutes to speak. Okay, seeing none, we will return this back to the Planning Commissioner for further discussion or a motion.
I'll take a quick turn now.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to thank you for the work you've done on this, finding a comparable and light that's going to work, and introducing that competition and looking out for the city of West Jordan. We've, as a planning commission, I believe I can speak for all of us. We really appreciate it.
Commissioner Wynn,
If there's no further discussion, I'm prepared to make a motion.
please.
Based on the information and findings set forth in this staff report and upon the evidence and explanations received today, I move that the planning commission forward a positive recommendation to the city council for this application.
Commissioner Richardson.
I second that.
All right, we've got a motion from Commissioner Wynn, a second from Commissioner Richardson. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. This is where we usually tell people, welcome to West Jordan, but I guess we'll welcome a different lighting component into West Jordan. Anyway, third item on the agenda, text amendment for lift stations to amend the 2009 city code, adding section 944 sanitary sewer pumping and lift stations with a citywide applicability. City of West Jordan applicant. Greg, the time is yours.
Okay. Is there a presentation that I get to do with this? Was that loaded into this? It wasn't. Oh, I'm so sorry. I thought that I had a presentation. I apologize for that. I'll still go over a little bit of that. My name is Greg Davenport. I'm the Public Utility Director. The mayor wanted me to tell you that he's very pumped to hear the discussion that we're going to have today. For me,
Say that to her face.
right? For me, I'm very happy to hear your questions and answer them. I appreciate the time you guys spend on this on the commission, and I appreciate your viewpoints. So thank you for being here today. First, I just want to go over what a sewer lift station is, just for a minute. A sewer lift station's purpose is to lift sewer from a lower elevation to a higher elevation. It includes a well that wastewater comes into and is detained for a period of time, and there's a pump system that pumps water out of that well and then takes it to the higher elevation. There's a motor that goes with that pump and a power supply that goes with that pump. Sometimes those lift stations also have an auxiliary power supply because it's such a big deal when the power supply goes out. It will have a level control inside the wet well. So if it reaches a certain elevation, another pump can kick on. And also to an alarm. There's an alarm system with every lift station so that a technician can come just in case it's not working and it's about to flood a person or a street. Last part of a lift station, there's an odor control system and a ventilation system because a lift station, one of the problems with a lift station is it creates odor. Anytime you have sewer wastewater sit for a period of time, there's going to be odor released. To go over just with you for just a minute, our current sewer lift station policy is found in the West Jordan Sanitary Sewer Policy and Design Criteria Manual, and it's in section 1.8C and 2.15. The current public policy says that sanitary sewer shall be designed to flow by gravity. Use of a sanitary pumping station shall be avoided wherever possible and shall not be permitted within the public sewer line. And then it goes into policy for private residential stations and design guidelines for those private residential stations. West Jordan's been very, very lucky. We currently don't have any public sewer lift stations. When I first started working at West Jordan City, we had 2 public lift stations. That made the operators very excited because it equated to a lot of overtime for them every week. Typically in a lift station, you have alarms that don't work and that are faulty. So you have operators come to the lift station when there is no emergency at all. And you typically have power outages. Rocky Mountain Power for good or bad. They can't control that. They can't keep power on all the time. So the alarms also go off every time that there is a power outage, and that also gave them a lot of overtime. Because then they would come in with pumps and generators to keep those lift stations operating. Anyway, we are very glad that we have no public lift stations in the city anymore, but we do have one private lift station, and it is down off of 70th South near the Jordan River. It is for a private HOA, and they have a company that monitors that 24/7, and they pay that company to come do that, and the residents of West Jordan don't have to pay for someone to do that. The current policy, the current code that we're proposing, it was something that was requested of staff from City Council. They wanted to strengthen that code. A design code is something that, of course, the developer can look at, but it's not as strong as, say, a city code reference. So a city code reference is always something that is stronger than a design code. And so they wanted to put something in code that talked about these lift stations, because they also agree that sewer lift stations are not desirable. So the proposed lift station city code ordinance says all sanitary sewer systems, it's going to go in 944, and it will say all sanitary sewer systems in the city shall be designed to flow by gravity. Use of sanitary pumping stations shall not be permitted within public lines. Private pumping stations shall not be permitted except when, as determined by the city public utility director or another officer or employee designated by the city administrator. That no adequate and reasonable achievable gravity flow system can be constructed to avoid the use of the private residential pumping stations. That also says if you have a private residential pumping station and it is permitted, the owner shall bear all liability and responsibility of the maintenance and operation of that pump facility. Do you have any questions for me?
Commissioner Wynn.
About how much does it cost to build a pumping station, and how long would it take?
So lift stations can be either pre-manufactured or they can be manufactured on site. The cost really depends on the amount of flow that comes in and the type. So the cheapest type is one that just has a wet well, and they'll stick a submersible pump down inside that wet well. A more expensive type, but also one that is that will last longer than the submersible pipe, is when you have a wet well separated from a dry side, and the pump and power stay on the dry side, so they don't have to be inside that sewer as they're pumping out. I would be guessing if I told you the cost, but they are very expensive to construct, depending upon the size. So I would have to get back with you with an exact cost, but
Just ballpark. It's
ballpark,
good enough for me.
the private sewer station that we have right now, my guess is it costs anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000 for. I think it has 50 homes that are on it. If it were a public lift station, it could be anywhere from $100,000 to millions of dollars. It just depends on the size.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Hey, this is a public hearing. And so we will now open this item up to the public. If you're online, feel free to raise your hand. If you're here, I keep saying locally, in person, feel free to come up and address the commission. You'll have 3 minutes. All right. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and bring this item back to the commission for further discussion or a motion. Commissioner Shelton.
If there's no other discussion, I would make a motion.
Please.
I move that the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to the City Council to adopt the proposed sanitary sewer lift station ordinance, Title 9-4-4.
Commissioner Thomas.
I'll second that motion.
Yeah, I've got a motion from Commissioner Shelton, a second from Commissioner Thomas. Further discussion on the motion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We will not welcome lift stations into the city. All right, item number 4, text amendment for streetscape walls to amend the 2009 city code, sections 13.14.3G and 13.14.3E with citywide applicability in the city of West Jordan. Applicant is next on the agenda. I understand we'd like to continue this to a future meeting, so we will seek a motion as such. Commissioner Thomas?
I'll make a motion that we go ahead and postpone this. Do we have a definite date? No, okay, just,
So it's recommended for October 17th.
okay, then motion will include the date of October 17th.
Okay, Commissioner Quinney?
A second.
Okay, we've got a motion, Commissioner Thomas, second, Commissioner Quinney. Further discussion on the motion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. That is the end of our agenda for today. Commissioner Thomas?
I make a motion that we adjourn.
We are adjourned.
What?